Kashefi. So she's professor here at the University of Edinburgh and in Sorbonne, Paris. And she's also the chief scientist of the National Quantum Computing Center. And she has made major contributions in fields like blind quantum computing and verifiable blind computing and many other places. She would be here in person, however, something urgent happened and she had to leave, so she'll give remotely this talk. So please welcome Elham.
Okay, I don't hear you anymore, but I assume you hear me. Thank you so much, Petros, for the introduction. Okay, I see now I hear my own echo. So let's see how I can... Actually, can we cut the microphone because it's going to be impossible to talk? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So it's going to be a very one-way communication. I like to tell you a little bit about the... I'm sorry, there is an echo. Maybe I should cut off my microphone. That doesn't work. Do you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, okay. I hear a terrible echo on my side. I see if I can ignore it. Okay, thanks a lot for the introduction. Let's crack on just saying that, putting in the context of today, why we're getting together, because we're all after big data machine. We want to collect more data, correlate more data, communicate more data, trade more data. And we know that when you put, large language model and blockchain and high performance computing, all of these things together, soon we're reaching to the level that this fast, massive, secure, accurate data machine will consume the energy of the planet. So it's good to find the solution, and we have a good partner here to assist us. And the way we believe that we can break this barrier is exactly our beloved quantum devices, which both provide speed and security and even energy consumption, as I'll go through the talk, and I'm hoping that you get a glimpse of how this thing is happening. And the whole point of communication and conversation of today is that indeed in future we will have this secure, fast network quantum data machine. And of course, when you want to go to the government for more funding, you will always mention public good. But there is a concrete use cases and application for net zero health, fraud detection, regulated computing, privacy preserving, etc., etc. But let's focus on the cybersecurity aspect that is the focus of our discussion today. And as everybody already mentioned, almost every impact of the development of quantum technology will have an effect on security and privacy. We wrote a paper together with Petros quite a while ago, and indeed we mentioned that it's both disruptive and opportunistic. Just to quickly put everybody in the same page, let's go through those quantum world mania that we define. So of course, the most famous one is that the scenario that only the bad guy have the quantum computer, and the good guy, us, have no access to it. It could even happen because of the cost and because of the political situation, but let's hope it's not the case. But if it is the case, that's the active research area of the post-quantum, which I was already mentioned, and there everything had to be revisited. And that's the point that I want to iterate, that nothing can be migrated right away. So we need to design a new hard problem, and that's the whole NIST competition. We need to look at the completely new security definition, superposition attack. And in fact, we needed to come up with the revisiting a lot of proof technique that we love and cherish, like rewinding. And then the world becomes a little bit better when we have a quantum enhanced scenario where the good guy like us, and you can say that this is more or less the scenario that we are already currently living. So we have access to small devices, we have access to quantum communication, and things become interesting. As we heard already, that we can have new primitive, like quantum key distribution, offer you information theoretical security. We can look at the efficiency, communication complexity. We have novel functionality like device independent. And of course, the future that we are all really dreaming and preparing ourselves is the quantumly enabled infrastructure. We have large fault-tolerant quantum computer, which are connected using both quantum communication and classical communication. So either we have quantum communication or classical communication, and our beloved quantum signature, as we saw, sits in that nice future. And also already Blind QC was mentioned that if we are in that futuristic plan, we are able to do things that classically is not possible, like information secure computation on remote devices or the one-shot signature. So since Justin raised the question of optimism and pessimism, I thought in bringing this like personal history note to ensure that we remain motivated. So when blind QC was proposed 2 decades ago, it was not rejected because the field existed, but it remained in the la-la land of crypto, because for computing this very simple circuit I'm showing at 4 qubit, the original protocol was asking this mad quantum entangled state. So the experimentalists will run away from the room when we wanted to pitch such a thing. But of course, we didn't give up. With many researchers in the room, including Petrus, we keep trying to re-optimize this thing. And very recently, we managed actually, by relaxing some of the condition, like going to classical input, classical output, to design new blind QC protocol that exists in the domain of small quantum devices and a small communication, such that we convince even experimentalists to implement it. And we even so optimistically believing in ourselves that we have a company, some of the people are in the room, that actually trying to build these devices and mass produce it. So my message is that stay motivated. Your next paper title will be Verifiable Quantum Signature and Noisy Devices, and I'm pretty sure Charles will fund your next company. So let's go through it. So now for the rest of the talk, in order to ensure that we really reach out and trying to understand how we can change the landscape, not only from theoretical work, which is of course very important, and we will discuss that more about more efficient protocol, more design, but also we need to co-develop with the hardware. And Agnes asked me to give a very general overview of where we're standing about the quantum landscape and how this thing is evolving. So the rest of my talk is going to be just a bunch of picture and numbers. I remain both optimistic and pessimistic in the superposition. So ask the question towards the end so we don't collapse. But it's a little bit of depending on how we see things, things might go in a different way. So first of all, we are not alone to be optimistic. The whole quantum world is making a huge effort. We have several of national quantum investment, and I'm pretty sure this one is not even updated in terms of the size of the market or investment from national, from the VC, who really everybody after of this quantum new future that I was trying to envision for you. And in case you are not coming from the quantum domain and you don't want to go through all the details of the experimentals, hardware, physicists, etc., I highly recommend this book by my colleague Oliver Ezrati, which is a 1,000-page almost Wikipedia of what's going on in the landscape of quantum, not necessarily written for the scientists, but is written for the general interested community. And many of the diagram that I'm showing is extracted from the book. So credit to Oliver for bringing a lot of knowledge together. Okay, so let's go through our 101 quantum computing status. So we have different type of quantum computing, as if it's not complicated enough. So we have type of analog quantum computer, which is what you will time to time hear quantum annealing computer and analog quantum simulator. I will not talk much about those during the talk because I believe for some of these crypto things it's not very easy and clear that how we can use these type of analog computing, which are much more better for quantum simulation problem and physical, like quantum chemistry discovery, etc. But what we will focus more on the digital quantum computer, which if you wish is very similar to our classical computer. They are gate-based, and the terminology that we will hear is the NISQ, coined by Preskill as a noisy intermediate scale quantum, i.e. bad quantum computer we have this day with no error correction. And we are all trying to make our path towards fault-tolerant quantum computer, which have error correction and fault tolerance gate, which are general purpose and allow us to achieve all those applications that we are envisioning. Okay, so just to tell you that we are not putting our eggs in just one basket. There is many different platforms that are emerging. There is different type of qubit, pick your favorite. There is a flying qubit from the bottom of the slide, which are looking at the photon, and they are so-called flying electron. They are very important for communication infrastructure that I will come back to this. But in fact, you can even do quantum computing with these devices as standalone. Then we have electron-based control, so that you're trying to look at your superconductor, even topology crazy fermion that Microsoft is exploring, silicon, which are the good old silicon, but now we're trying to bring the quantum effect in there, NV, etc. And also atom control, which could be cold atom control or ion trap control or nuclear spin NMR, which is no longer very popular. Just trying to show you this thing to show that the landscape is getting more and more complicated, but it's actually a optimistic way of saying it. So we are exploring many routes, and that's the exciting things. We are not just right at the beginning that we have just one way of exploring, and nobody knows which one is going to explore. Even the maturity doesn't mean that they are the ultimate runner for such a system. In fact, this is one of the diagrams from the book that is saying that we might have some platform that right now seems to be more mature and getting closer to enabling error correction. However, they might not be the best solution for scalability. And this is like a stock market of qubits keep changing, depending on who pushing for what. So it's a very exciting landscape to keep track of it. And maybe this is the best diagram I thought I extracted from that 1,000 pages book, that it gives us a little bit of indication, because probably many people come and see that, okay, we want to just know the number and that's the only thing. Number is not really the case. It's a complicated fact of we want the number of the qubit, of course, because the bigger number, the faster, etc. But you need to care about the fidelity, about the quality of those qubit, quality of your gate and the operation, as well as connectivity. So in this diagram, what are quite interesting is how the evolution is happening. So if you look at I'm hoping you see my mouse. So if you look at the evolution, for example, the IBM machine, they started with the 5-qubit machine, and they started to go zigzagging, because you might have you're going towards the bad direction, i.e. very noisy qubit that is not necessarily ideal for scaling up, and they reiterate to get a better system. And you see, every time they jump to the higher one, they have to do several iterations. So now we have this amazing 433 device, which is a milestone on its own to be achieved, but we need to wait for several iterations so that this qubit comes to the regime, to this we want more to be able to push towards fault tolerance, upward in the diagram, but we also want to be able to go to the good direction, i.e. the level of the noise of these devices should be much lower. So at least not for the sake of crypto application, but the sake of any good application that we are doing some simulation, we get something useful. So if you see some of the other platform having different strategy, Continuum is staying at the, which is based on ion trap, staying at 40 qubit, but they have a very high fidelity, and the belief is that they might reach to the useful NISQ. So again, very sophisticated landscape, just a warning that the number is not the only thing that matters, and this thing is going to keep changing. But maybe the good story, maybe I just jump very quickly, is that there's a lot of money from the VC that is trying to push that. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm optimistic, in the sense that it's no longer just a scientific lab effort, although the science is still continuously bringing bottleneck lower and lower. However, there is a huge appetite from the national government, from the VC, from the investor to try to make sure that we get hold of those devices. So this is a slight, again, landscape of how the spending is going, and we are not seeing any winter coming, despite some people are keep warning. So it would be interesting to see how this thing is going. And, but to be also a bit warning and pessimistic, the noise is the reason, so if you ask, it's not just a matter of engineering and put more and more qubit. In fact, we have company and a strategy that they have just decided to put 1,000 and 2,000 and 5,000 of superconducting. So the design could be there, but how can we avoid all these crazy, depending on your platform, maybe your material defect can have an effect on your design, crosstalk between your qubit, back action, the entire control signal jittery that is going there. So if somebody asks why we are not building quantum computer, is not the fact that we don't know how to do it, we don't know how to scale it up. So the landscape has changed, is the scaling is the challenge, and the scaling in such a way that we deal with this noise. And of course, we're dealing with the noise with the magical toolbox of error correction and fault tolerance, which existed again from the very first creation of the field. Peter Shore not only funded the interest in the field, but also come up with a solution for the error correction, and many other solution has been also proposed. And again, this one is also remaining complicated and is changing. So the same way the hardware people trying to do much better design and connectivity and control, the lots of innovation discovery comes from the error correcting community, surface code, toric code, color code, low density parity code, etc., etc. Each time they're coming with a way to assist the hardware. And this code development is quite interesting in our field. So we want to make sure at the same time the hardware in this side of the diagram trying to reduce their error rate. They also need to be careful about creating a better connectivity, because that's most of the time this code require more connectivity and applying the different gate. Then at the same time, for purposes beyond the discussion of today, is that there are some particular gates are very expensive. So people trying to come up with alternative architecture that, we have some easy fault tolerant gates, some hard fault tolerant gate, can be completely mix this thing. And at the end of the day, the bottleneck is the number of physical qubit that we need to have in order to get good logical qubit to run the computation. So that's the landscape. How do we go from this device to the fault tolerant? And the terminology, the status that you will see, it used to be NISQ and fault tolerance quantum computing, but people are start saying that this is a much more coarse grain. In fact, in one of the latest conference of the field, the Q2B, which is a very businessy oriented, people started saying that bye-bye NISQ and hello LSQ, means that people believing that, first of all, we are going to go to the regime very soon in the next few years to see 1,000 noisy qubit, but probably not terrible noisy, which we need to see what we can do with them. And again, coming back to the topic of the conference of today, so if we can more and more showing that with these noisy devices, with the existing one, we can do something useful, we can keep the appetite of the entire field to continue investment and pushing, because there will be a hurdle coming when we want to go from LSQ to the practical fault tolerant and hopefully very large scale quantum computing that is required for many of the application. So this path is going to be bumpy, but the job of us, whether we are coming from crypto, from application, from end user, is to ensure that there is a healthy, steady progress of believing that this investment, like CERN, when you're building CERN, you need to know that you want to discover Higgs boson. So we need to make sure that the algorithmic input and now maybe cryptographic input can ensure that the investment is going in the right direction. Okay, just to slow down a little bit, perhaps just saying that again, so what is going on? There is a lot of research lab and a lot of vendors are exploring everything. So these are not just random points. If you just see, and I'm not sure even this one is completely inclusive of everything. So there are the trapped ion, as I mentioned, is one way to implement quantum computing. That one of them is quite interesting, as I'll come back to them, is IonQ and Quantinuum, because they have a clear roadmap and I think IonQ actually went public, so you can be part of this. Then there is a cold atom. For a long time was an underdog, and people were not believing with the Rydberg atom and cold atom we can create a universal computer. And the very surprising result of a couple of months ago is showed that, in fact, in Quora, with the help of Harvard lab, they presented for the first time 48 logical qubits. So we see we are building. So they had 200 physical qubit, and they have done very simple encoding, which allow us to really believe that indeed we might reach into this LSQ that they have a better quality. They're not just noise, and we are able to have this roadmap going forward. There has been annealing, the D-Wave, and several other companies which are going this quantum adiabatic computation approach. Superconducting, of course, has been the front runner. Many is quite busy there. There is the IBM, there is Google, there is Rigetti, there is Alice and Bob, there is many small startups, there is a biggest startup, and is some of the, for time being, front runner in terms of not necessarily front runner, but is also in the roadmap that they have. Silicon is catching up. Obviously the argument for silicon qubit is that we have a lot of capacity for the classical silicon industry, and the hope of several this company, Quantum Motion in UK, Qubeli in France, and others, is that they can tap into that existing. So it might be that when it comes to scalability, they can catch up. Then there is the NV platform vacancy, which is particularly very good when we want to have the hybrid architecture of quantum communication and quantum computing at the same time, which is much harder for the other one. And I come back to about this communication link with computing, but NV platform have been already connected to the photonic link and the QKD link. We have topological, which is only explored by Microsoft. This is amazing in terms of the stability and fault tolerance structure, but the basic material has not yet been observed completely, so it's more theoretical. And of course, there is a photonic, quantum optics, particularly in UK, has been forever strong, and photonic, yet another framework that for a long time people were thinking is impossible to get very practical, fault-tolerant, universal quantum computer, because it's a very probabilistic nature compared to superconducting. They are completely different in terms of challenge. But several companies, and again, over the last 2 years, photonic has become the latest fashion. Psi Quantum, one of the big name, raised a lot of money, and they have actually a full architecture of fault tolerant. They're not even trying to build a NIST. They're going to go straight to the fault tolerance, practical fault tolerant quantum computing. That's the claim. There are several other companies, Orca in UK, Quandela in France, Xanadu in Canada, that are also exploring this photonic. And again, some of advantage apart from a very good fault-tolerant structure is also connecting to the photonic, so photon communication. So what I want to emphasize is that while I put them all in the same place, each one of them has their own challenges. And it's quite interesting that, for example, photon is very easy to have any sorts of architecture and connectivity, but it's very hard to make two qubit gate because they are probabilistic. Super connecting qubits are very fast in doing 2 qubit gate, but they have a fixed connectivity. So we don't have yet something that is doing all the tick box, but probably we're going to get there. So here I'm showing a little bit architecture because it's fascinating. If you're like me, a computer scientist, whenever we talk to the physicists, it is mind-blowing that what progress they are making from what we used to see 20 years ago as a lab, and now this is if I remember, H2 or H1 platform of the Quantinuum, which is really can take this ion trap like a bus, like it's actually like a sushi track, that you can take this ion trap, your qubit, bring them during the sushi track to the gate zone that is shown in order to make them interact together and then continue interacting them. So they have one of the highest fidelity, and it's a completely different architecture from the other platform that exists. And here is the roadmap that was just released by IBM, and is showing their plan for 100,000 qubit. They call it quantum-centric supercomputer. And when you talk to the optimistic IBM machine, they have kept all of their milestone, but how the things goes is not straightforward. But they have a very clear vision of how this thing, using a distributed architecture, that again, I'm coming to talk about it in a second, they can really reach to this beyond the 1,000 that probably will be limits of one chip that sit in the fridge. Okay, so what is the bottleneck? If you have these 100,000 qubit, etc. Just to remind you, I already mentioned about error correction. The bottleneck is a slide from Joshua, one of my colleagues at QSL in Edinburgh as well, that is saying that we need to remember we cannot just wait for the hardware engineering to progress. Come back to the again error correcting code. The error correcting code is creating overhead. The theory is there, but again, if you have this 3 qubit quantum state and you want to do several of operation on that, and now you want to do fault tolerantly to be able to detect the error, you end up to have this massive, crazy overhead, as you can see, and this is with a very nice Steen error correction code. So a lot of work needs to be done, and in fact, a lot of work is being done, and probably this is one of the active area of research in the next couple of years to play around. This become again circuit optimization. We ourselves are trying to work quite closely with the ICSA colleague at Edinburgh, which have done such a game when they were looking at the GPU for the even large language model. So I think there is a lot, again, computer science can bring in order to assist this barrier. And this is yet another diagram that's saying that, like, we are time being, we're stuck. This is just the number of physical qubit which we need to achieve one logical qubit to the good enough error rate so that the fault tolerant threshold can kick in. So you see, it's not yet reasonable overhead, but we are not end of the game. You know, there is a lot of crazy and clever mathematician who's trying to come up with the alternative error correcting code, and that's a very active area of research. So that's a little bit about the quantum computing. I mean, as I say, I purposely didn't tell you, do we get it or when are we getting it, how we're going to get it, and which one is winner, because nobody know. But one report that probably some of you have been keeping an eye is this is a yearly report that Evolution Q under the leadership of Mike Mosca is usually publishing it, and is doing a ask the expert type of thing, not necessarily, you know, just looking at the number. And the latest report, I mean, the story goes as the following: the urgency of moving to a quantum safe cryptography. I mean, already Aglos mentioned earlier, it depends on your organization based on the security that you need. It depends on the shelf time, you know, what kind of forward security you want. If you have 1 billion of assets on your blockchain, you want to make sure that, you know, they are secure not just for today, maybe for the next 100 years. And then the migration time is not just right like that, even if you bring the post-quantum. And then you need to have an eye of your quantum threat and do this Mosca equation to see that if it's time for you to panic or not. So, and in order to assist a little bit about the quantum threat, so what Evolution Q is usually doing is just going around, ask the experts, when do you think a quantum computer that could be relevant for breaking RSA 2048 in 24 hours? And it's interesting, depending on who answering and how the statistic comes, and it's changing also over the year. But I don't know, I mean, depending, again, you're optimistic or pessimistic, you can look at it and again back to this equation saying that, yeah, maybe if you're doing online transaction with your MasterCard, you don't care. But if you're a blockchain and you're talking about, you know, long-term security, this is something that you need to think. That's why we are here, and that's why people are trying to do that migration. Okay, let me also jump quickly. I have no clue how much time has left, but I wanted to mention very quickly that in this landscape, it's not just about quantum computing. Of course, quantum communication infrastructure also evolving heavily, and many governments have put funding in it. USA has a blueprint for quantum internet. European Union has been active with the EuroQCI. China is the pioneer, implemented 3,000 kilometer satellite point-to-point communication there. In EuroQCI is essentially now investment in all the different European countries to build their local quantum communication network. Here I'm showing the UK one, from Bristol to Cambridge to UCL. And again, very active field, many companies there. Is reached to the maturity. One of the most mature one is ID Quantic that has been explored. It could be various applications like, you know, random number generator, etc., but is also actively trying to see what other protocol can come and sit on top of that. And, you know, of course, my favorite topic is because it's going to enable blind QC is that when you put quantum computer and quantum communication together. And it's interesting that it used to be just for the sake of security we were pushing those directions, but lately it's become completely clear that the only way to get a scalable fault-tolerant quantum computer, you need to have quantum link. So whether you want to put quantum link for the privacy type of application we're discussing, or whether you want to do it for actually integrity verifiability or scalability, is the same designing. So there's several companies that now are looking at building this modem, if you wish, to how to connect the communication with the computing, because they might be as an integrator for the bigger company like, you know, INQ or IBM, in order to assist with the scalability. So it's a very interesting landscape that these two branches that I was showing you about classical communication the quantum computer separately exploring, and quantum communication maybe just for the sake of QKD. Now they're coming together and creating opportunity, and that's the quantum network stage. Another very interesting paper, you can look at it to get an idea of what this quantum internet look like, and we are today at the trusted repeater scenario, and then how we can build up all the way to go together to come back to the quantum internet landscape. And in case to realize that this is not just one application, it's not just one thing that is going to make us happy. We actually made this Wikipedia of all the various protocols that, depending on what stage of this communication infrastructure and how many capability are the node have, we have plenty of other protocols. You can go to this Wikipedia and look at the stages that they are and try to figure out. And interestingly, from very beginning, we have been looking at the quantum money when you have quantum communication. Now we need to update the Wikipedia also with the new quantum money, which is based on no classical communication. And again, the maturity of market, there is more and more appetite for the use cases of quantum internet. There has been a recent work in Mina from Edinburgh and Cloud. They have been leading, talking to many different sectors, including blockchain and DeFi, to trying to see that what are those pain points that exist in the classical solution. We heard some of them today from Agnes and Justin, but what are the other ways that we can address them? And again, quantum token has been coming from the very industry point of view. That is the solution. You can look at this. So I want to really finish. I know I'm running out of time, but I wanted to just say, okay, this is all maybe very high level talking by a scientist who's just excited, but in fact, our government in UK is also very excited or being listening to us. So in UK, we have published the National Quantum Strategy. So it already for the last 10 years, UK has been pioneer and has spent already 1 billion in quantum technology on various aspects of communication, sensing, imaging, and computing. And you would have thought that, the appetite comes to an end. And we just announced in 2023 that there will be 2.5 billion investment in the quantum technology and all aspects of quantum technology. DCIT has announcing it. Some of this money has been already plugged into the existing thing in national quantum computing. We are going to host several of the testbed of these various quantum computers to play with them, to assess them, to discuss, to explore them. So that's very exciting that is coming. Software activities such as fault tolerance is already well funded and is going to be looking at it. Feasibility study, this is all the roadmap that I was telling you to make sure that the machine and engine keep going through, and NQCC is the engine to ensure that the academic from the hub and the industry and the partner can come together in this very interesting mixing landscape to work on. And very last thing is that we also have been, just before holiday, have been working with my colleague at NQCC and several other members of DCIT and many members of the community. We just defined the National Quantum Strategy mission. It was supposed to be moonshot, but it's become mission, luckily. So we have 5 missions that these are the government mission that they are seriously want to implement. They are very ambitious, and you can criticize them. You can be wonder, again, being optimistic or pessimistic. But I guess message for me is that we are in a very supported landscape. We don't know how the future is going to look like, but it's clearly the government and many sectors are trying to focus on that. Maybe the mission 1 is the most interesting for us, and I will finish in the next couple of minutes, that UK is targeting to have a competitive commercial capability across the hardware, control architecture, and supply chain that will enable performance in excess of 1 trillion coherent quantum operation. This is crazy. It's a bit away. So it's not 1 trillion qubit, but it is able to making 1 trillion quantum operations. So clearly fault tolerance is well structured in order to go there. And it's also very clearly, after input from the whole community, it came that this is not just a hardware effort. It's a combine of this operation capacity with algorithm development, software capability to complete multiple useful calculation and significant value to the economy. So we are putting for ourselves quite a tough target that we need to do something that classically cannot be done. Who knows, could be quantum signature. And then we want to have a high impact to achieve in the following sector: healthcare, finance, transport, defense, energy, and manufacturing. So it's a call for input from the entire sector, and I think it's a very good timing to be able to see what we can bring from this community. And again, also HPC and other strengths in Edinburgh, we have a partnership with EPCC. That is because it's clear that a lot of this control need to come from the high performance computing. So maybe I just also mentioned very quickly the other mission on the quantum communication is also very ambitious, that they want to establish by 2035 a quantum network of cluster of quantum process which are bringing those devices together, which is a part of mission 1. And to have a nationwide connectivity, early commercialization, future quantum internet to be launched. So I will stop here saying that, okay, I'm now collapsing to the very optimistic scenario that we are reaching to our quantum utopia, that we can have this secure quantum data center, but we need all the help and input from all the sector to make it possible. Thank you very much. I'm not hearing anybody. I hope you heard me, but if there is any question, maybe a microphone need to be turned on. Excellent. It seems that you are completely convinced. So we have quantum computer and there's no question.
Computation, but it only allows some people to do it and not others. So I'm just wondering whether this threat model is something that you've thought about in the blinded computation setting. If you heard me. Yeah, so that's exactly where I'm going with this, because I think this is quite an issue, right? Quantum computation, it could be the case if it's developed that it's a resource that is of the select few, and it might be available for blinded computation. So you can still do your private computations there by delegating them and scrambling your private information or getting your secret key without the quantum computer know, but of course then the one who runs the quantum computer can say, well, I'm going to deny you in particular, right? So you can selectively deny people from using the resource. So I think it's an interesting threat model, and I would be curious to hear if this has been considered. If not by Elham, I could perhaps ask Petros. Yeah, is that something that you considered or was considered? As you know, some of that literature, right?
Sorry, I was trying to figure out what happened. I understood the start of the question. So when these fault-tolerant quantum computers develop, then
I don't know if you can see the chat. As I said, there is Alex, Mina, Petros, and many other Quantum Software Lab members in the room, and they can answer all of your questions even better than me. So probably for the interest of time, we can move on and I'll be online again and happy to answer any other question.
Thank you, Elham. Thank you. So, any comment,
Yeah,
Petrus, perhaps, or anybody else?
So yes, so the comment was that yes, I mean there are such protocols for delegated, secure, and verifiable quantum computation, which some of them can work with completely classical communication. So indeed, if we were in this setting that there's large quantum computers existed and can do the one-time signatures, that could be, I mean, clients could delegate that to the server. And
right. So the second part of the question, though, is that we have a threat model that this quantum computer could censor some of these queries. So it's interesting. So I was wondering whether censoring some of the clients is a threat model that has been considered, and whether you think it's conceivable to come up with this blinded quantum computation which is also censor resilient.
Potentially, but yeah.
Good, thank you.
Let's thank Elham again, and
Yeah,
if she hears. And
yeah, I'll introduce you.